Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this Masters of Horror Season 1 episode review video as part of my current February 2024 series. And we have reached the last episode, not only the last episode that aired, but also the last episode in this review series. So it all kind of came together at the end, where it's been kind of all over the place in terms of the airing versus my review order here. But that is the 13th episode from season 1 of Masters of Horror, and that episode is entitled Imprint. And all I can say is, boy, did they go out with a bang. Season 1 definitely didn't go out with a whimper. But yeah, I have all 13 episodes, of course, that I reviewed for this series on this DVD collection here. Um, Stay tuned. I'm still going to have one more video after this last episode review video, and that, of course, is ranking all 13 episodes and giving you my final thoughts on the overall season 1 of Masters of Horror. That'll be dropping in a day or so. So let's just go ahead and get into Imprint, the 13th episode of the first season of Masters of Horror. So this episode was directed by Takashi Miike, who, of course, directed such movies as Audition, which is fantastic. The episode was scheduled to premiere on January 27th, 2006, but was shelved by Showtime over concerns about its graphic and disturbing content. It was later released to DVD on September 26, 2006. So it sounds like this episode never even aired on Showtime. They pulled it at the last minute, it sounds like, because of those concerns about the disturbing content and the graphic nature. Again, this was back in the beginning of 2006, so we're kind of in the middle 2000s. I don't know if it would be my feeling is it might be different now that they wouldn't, but who knows that they wouldn't have pulled it is what I'm trying to say. So basically this episode is about a Victorian era American journalist named Christopher who's traveling through Japan looking for this woman named Komomo, a lost girlfriend he had promised to rescue from a prostitution lifestyle that she was in and bring her to the United States. Landing on this island populated solely by whores and their masters, he is solicited by a um, syph- uh, syphilistic tout. Christopher has to spend the night requesting the company of a girl. So he basically notices this girl so all these girls are behind this like cage or whatever, and there's one in the back that's just kind of sitting there, not really fighting for any man's attention or anything. That's the one, of course, he picks, and she's a disfigured and disturbed um, girl who claims a closer connection with the dead than the living. She tells him that Komomo was here, but hanged herself after her lover never came for her. Distraught, Christopher seeks solace in sake, which is like wine, I guess, in Japan. So he gets kind of toasted. Falling asleep, he requests a bedtime story. The girl recounts her past. Her mother, a midwife, was forced to sell her to a brothel after her father died. Komomo was the most popular girl there, making the others jealous. When the madam's jade ring was stolen, Komomo was portrayed to confess, or was tortured to confess. After suffering uh, hideously, underarms burned, needles driven under fingernails and into gums, she hanged herself in torment, tired of waiting for her lover. So yeah, that's kind of the setup and the premise. As far as the cast goes, I'm going to try to pronounce some of these names, but um, Yoki Kudo, Yoki Kudo is Komomo. Uh, Mish- Makia or Mashia is, or I'm sorry, Yoki Kudo was the woman that's in the cell here that he basically that Christopher decides to go with for the night. Mishi or Mickey is Komomo. Billy Drago is Christopher, and Toki Tokidia Shitoa. Oh boy, why do I do this to myself? Tokida Tokidashi Shoda is the elderly woman. We'll just go with that. So that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for episode 13, Imprint from season 1 of Masters of Horror. Um, as I said in my opening, this episode, they went out with a bang, to say the least. Sometimes you watch these anthology shows or shows in general, and as you get towards the end, whether it's an anthology season or just like a horror season in general, sometimes it doesn't quite live. It kind of you got your better episodes at the beginning and the middle, and the end kind of goes out with a whimper. That's not the case here. There's a lot you can say about this episode. Uh, Mostly good, some not necessarily bad, but forewarning. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I liked about this episode, because I did like this episode. When you kind of step back, it kind of has a similar feel to the movie Martyrs. And I'm not talking about the American remake, I'm talking about the good one, the original French movie from 2008. You'll know what I mean by the time I'm done with my review here. So this movie's it's a very well shot, well directed by Takashi Miike and wonderfully laid out and told story that has a lot of impact. It really does a great job of presenting its narrative, the way it's laid out, the tone, the style, everything is just very well done from a technical standpoint. The episode overall has a lot of impact. It's not an episode that anyone that watches it's going to forget. It's definitely when you think of Masters of Horror season 1, if this episode isn't at least one of the first two or three that you think of, then I don't think you've seen this episode because it has staying power. It definitely stands out. Not soon to forget. I really love how the flashback story in this episode, which is kind of the main part of the episode, after the first 15 or 20 minutes when we're introduced to Christopher and the woman, and he ends up finding out that Kamomo is dead and all that kind of stuff. And she starts reminiscing about this story to tell him. That's really the crux of the episode. But I really love how this flashback story is told three different times, and it gets darker and different and more disturbing with each telling. I just think it does a great job of building up so much dread and horror in a very effective way. To whereas we, the viewer, just know that something bad is in store for the character of Christopher and for us as well as viewers. We just know that it's leading to something that's going to be unsettling. So that was very excellently done. This episode definitely doesn't hold back on its storytelling, which I appreciate. I give it credit for. It really goes for it without apologizing for anything that it uses in order to make the themes and the narrative of this episode. I don't know what the hell that was. Um, I hope I'm safe here. Um, Now I lost my train of place here. Um, No, but it really goes for it without apologizing for anything in order to make the themes and narrative of this episode as strong and as memorable as it can be. A lot of episodes or movies will say, "Well, we'd like to have this, but we'll take it out because of the the what am I trying to say here um oh my God, I'm drawing a blank here. Like Friday the 13th Part 7, the MPAA, that's what I'm thinking of. So make their narrative lesser because of that. And so they definitely Takashi Miki doesn't do that with this episode. He's like, this is my story and I'm sticking to it. Basically, it's here for better or worse. So deal with it basically, and I appreciate that. This episode definitely has some genuinely creepy imagery, especially the last 15 minutes or so with what is revealed and what we as viewers see quickly in background shots behind certain characters. Just very well done horror by Takashi Miike. It has a really bizarre but also effective twist that will add to and leave an impact on all the viewers of this episode. I really didn't see it coming. I should have, especially being the sort of the Japanese culture and some other type of movies and shows that I've seen, especially related to Takashi Miike and just the whole Japanese culture. But it really does pay off well. Um, it's a really good payoff to the buildup of the dread in the story and explaining how this woman's face, because her face, like half of it is deformed, it's kind of pulled back like this, and that's all explained with this reveal, and it's very shocking, and it's kind of like what the fuck kind of a reveal. So yeah, those are my pros, are the things that I liked about this episode 13 Imprint. As far as the cons go, or the things that I didn't like, first of all, I'm going to tell you something that wasn't necessarily a con. Um, it's not necessarily something I didn't like. It's more of a warning, a trigger warning. Um, There's a reason that Showtime didn't want to air this episode back in 2006, and having watched it, I can understand why. The episode has some extremely graphic and torturous violence throughout. Things from on-screen abuse, physical abuse, torture, aborted fetuses floating around, and they don't shy away from anything. Like I said before, which in some ways I can appreciate, but it also makes for a very difficult watch. It's definitely not an episode for the faint of heart or the squeamish. It does spend a fair amount of time on these different images and themes. So just know that going in that it's not this is episode's not going to be for everybody, and caution yourself, prepare yourself for some of the things that you're going to see on screen here. So that's my PSA warning, you might say. I thought the acting of Billy Drago was really hammed up and not in a good way. This is where I really get into my cons. He really doesn't fit. His performance doesn't really fit the serious tone or narrative of this episode, and his reactions and just his line delivery is really off. So that's definitely a con, I have to say. Rest in peace to him. I don't think I'd seen him in anything else, to be fair. So I thought the look of the twin, that's all I'm going to say, not to give spoilers, was pretty silly looking, to be honest. Not as scary or as well crafted as it could have been or should have been, in my opinion. And it kind of took me out of it a little bit. Again, it kind of goes back into Billy Drago's performance. It just kind of takes you out of it because it's like, well, this doesn't fit the tone and the look of this twin doesn't really fit the tone and the seriousness of this movie. It looks like something that you would see in like a cheesy 80s kind of effect or something or movie. So that's definitely something that stood out, not for the better. The ending of this episode really does leave you kind of confused in terms of what exactly happened. Was the woman a real person or a demon? Was this woman connected to Komomo in some way? I'm not going to give anything away more than that. Sorry about the noise, guys. My wife and son just got home, so they don't know what I'm doing here. So if you hear that in the background, I apologize. But um, it's not really explained exactly who he shot at the end or what happens. Is this woman connected to Komomo? Is she a real person? That's as much as I'm going to say. It's not really explained, and that might be unsatisfying to some viewers of this episode. But with all that being said, I do have a few cons, but mostly pros. I can't give this episode anything less than an 8 out of 10 because the directing, the cinematography, the storytelling, the horror of it. I mean, it's all right there. And like I said, it stands out. It's such a memorable episode that you can't forget. And if that isn't everything that you kind of expect from horror, I don't know what is. So yeah, I got to go with an 8 out of 10, despite how difficult it is to watch. And the thing I had the hardest time watching with this episode had to do with fingernails. That's all I'm going to say. If you've seen it, you know if you know, and if you don't know, I'm just going to say fingernails having to do with the torture scene. But there's a lot of stuff, like I said, just be forewarned. But otherwise, great episode. Definitely one of the better ones of season one, in my opinion. 8 out of 10 for Imprint the final episode 13 from season one of Masters of Horror. So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my last video for this series, which is my ranking of all 13 episodes, as well as some summary thoughts on the overall season and series. Please comment down below as well what you guys think of this episode. If you thought it was as disturbing as Showtime did, if you liked it more than I did, less, why not? If you found it disturbing at all. I know everybody has a different tolerance for extreme horror or torture, graphic violence, and things like that. So I'd be curious to hear. But please be sure to subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content, not only the wrap up to this series, but also what I have coming out the rest of the year. I literally have 2024 and into 2025 all planned out. That's how much horror content I have for you guys. So, with that being said, I hope you guys are enjoying this series. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for watching and stay scared. Bye.